what we call Afro hair care, learning and skills. So we're going to talk about ourselves as individuals, we're going to talk about the industry, and then we're going to take Q&A, and then we want to understand about your aspirations. So what we're going to do, first of all, Derek is going to tell you his story and tell us how he got to where he's got to today.
Right guys, so good afternoon. I'm so happy to see you all here. This is a fantastic turnout. So this may be a bit premature in that I'm hoping that at the end of these sessions, we'll have potential hairdressers and hair carers, but we like to use the word well-being, the well-being of your hair. I think that's a new term now. So I'm DeCutter Clement. At 17 years of age, I started my apprenticeship in the West End of London. And it was in Mayfair, to be precise. Young man walked into the hairdressing salon, asked the owner to train me, and they trained me up until 5 years. I became a qualified hairdresser. And taught me and gave me a craft for the future. And it's lasted me for 35 years, up until today. And I'm hoping that perhaps you guys may probably adopt the same principle. You like? Is it done? Right, yeah. All right, so, this is much better.
See everybody.
So guys, I mean, we are in an era where, for the first time, I think, Afro hair is regarded as phenomenal. For the first time, can you imagine that, guys? There's a time when Afro hair was shone upon, it was scorned, it was belittled. People thought it was tough, it was hard, it doesn't grow. People thought, I mean, all the negatives was attributed to Afro hair. And interesting enough, today, companies like L'Oreal, now if you don't know who they are, that's the giant of the industry. They own everything as far as hair is concerned. And L'Oreal said to us, indirectly, that there are 85,000 black salons in the UK, and they're not even getting 5% of that. Can you imagine that? As a young hairdresser, 17, I couldn't visualize a white company like L'Oreal showing interest. I'll tell you why I say this. Because all the black celebrities would go to what was then a shop called Vidal Sassoon. Now, Vidal Sassoon was a very prominent white salon back in the day. So while he had his famous salon on Bond Street, we had famous black people. We go to him. And he said to them, guys, there's a black salon up the road, go to them. And I'm referring to people like Shirley Bassey and all the people like Grace Kennedy. All the famous people then came to us. And they kind of almost forgotten that black Afro hair was there. But we had the task back then of, if you like, emulating European hair onto Afro hair. So then we had to straighten the hair in those days. We had to straighten our customers' hair. We had to use a very toxic chemical called a relaxer. The reason why I'm saying that, because these children may not know what a relaxer is. I'll tell you why I say this. All the young people today, my daughter's age, I've got a 3-year-old and a 15 and a 30-year-old. Now, they don't put chemicals on their hair. So in those days, for the younger ones, we had to straighten the hair, take the hair from what we call back then kinky hair in its original state, Afro hair, and we had to take it to this state, straight. The problem is with that, over 30, 40, 50 years of doing all of that, black people here became traumatized, damaged. And the thing was, they couldn't, this constant desire to grow their hair, I think, was being impeded by this relaxer. But anyway, that's another story. So at 17, 18, 19, 20, it took me 5 years to become a hairdresser. Hard slogging, washing. We started a shampoo basin back in those days, and the backwash. And we washed the hair, then a year later we learned to straighten, a year later we learned to cut, a year later we learned to perm, and a year later we learned to do color. And at the same time I'll supplement my training with going to college. So I went to 2 colleges. I went to Hounslow Borough College in West London. I went to London School of Fashion in the West End. And that was necessary because I had to, of course, have what they call then the City and Guilds. Right? That was important to have the City and Guilds so that it qualifies you as a proper hairdresser. Afro hairdressing was phenomenal. We were creating an amazing industry back in the day. And the guy who taught me, his name is Winston Isaacs, he's now since passed, he was a phenomenal hairdresser. So he was what we call the father, in my opinion. It's not official, but I like to call him the father of Afro hair, because he laid the foundation. And the reason why he laid the foundation, because women in those days were requiring the hair to look, if you like, for the want of a better word or term, white. So imagine I'm a young hairdresser back in my 20s, and black women was coming to the hairdressers and asking me to do a Lady Di or Farrah Fawcett. And but for the younger ones, these were white celebrities of the day. But Lady Di was a princess, wasn't she? Yeah?
Yeah.
She's a princess. Right, just for she was a princess. Right. So now, black women were coming to the salon and Derek, can you do my, and they never brought a black image, they used to bring a white image. That's trauma. That's trauma. But anyway, we had the task back then of having to create styles to suit the requirements of the day. Because when you went into corporate England, you had to, of course, conform, if you like, to a white perspective of beauty. And they had to be straightened. So, and today, the requirement is Afro. Looking across the room, with the exception of one or two people, everyone here is natural. And why is that? It's interesting, isn't it? Why is it all of a sudden there's this demand for your own hair? Is it because we as a people are rising consciously? Or have we woken up? As Marcus Garvey said. Anyone remember what Marcus Garvey said? Anyone care to repeat the famous Marcus Garvey word? Wake up, you mighty race. You can do anything.
You will.
You can. You dare. So there you are. So 30, 40 years later, it's interesting because I've managed to stay the course. I've stayed the course because I've been doing this for over 30, 40 years, right? And what I found today, I'm doing less straightening, or if you like, manipulating or damaging of the hair. Because when you apply, in those days, to get the hair from, so this is the hair shaft, by the way, guys. Hair shaft. Let's call this the hair shaft. And let's call this the scalp. So this is the scalp. This is the hair shaft. Let's do a little head there as well. My drawings is really disgusting. So guys, so in those days, listen very carefully. You had to take the hair from this state, which is its natural state, and straighten the hair. So we had to then apply what was then called caustic soda. So really toxic chemical. As a matter of fact, this has a pH balance of 9.6. That's acid. And this chemical could seep into your scalp over time, over 30, 40 years, and erode your blood vessels, your blood tissues, and there's something called the sebaceous gland. And in the sebaceous gland, by the way, is what provides the hair with nutrient. It's a conditioner. It's called sebum. So visualize 30, 40 years of straightening your hair. This would be dry. And somebody says, a famous black doctor says, ultimately you will get cancer. So I'm amazed at this, guys, because is our ancestors talking to us? And all of a sudden, black women everywhere, black children, black teenagers, they don't want their hair to be straightened. And I'm fascinated by that. And what's nice about this also, it actually brings into the equation the barbering of Afro hair. All right? So we have a wonderful acronym that we call BLACKS. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Right. So we have a wonderful acronym called BLACKS. And I tell you what, this is an amazing word because I didn't realize what it actually meant until I look back on the term. So yeah, so it's called BLACKS. We sometimes say B for blacks in our company. All right? So by the way, guys, all this ties in with the whole concept of moving from here, from this to this to this. So this means bald. This means braid. This means locks. This means afro. This means weave or wrap. Black people wrap their hair a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And this means curl, and this means kinky. So isn't it amazing? This is what we call, and straight, blacks. Blacks. Oh, listen.
Afro.
Yeah, the A is for Afro.
Yeah. And the W, wigs, weaves, and wraps.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason being, reasons, but also they may have an illness, lupus, you know, could be cancer, they could be on medication, they may be under stress. So what we always say is that we don't know a woman's journey, so we don't make any judgment. Because at the end of the day, it is about the woman's choice, how she wants to wear her hair. And why we emphasise that is because, as Derek's been saying, there has been this move back to Afro, and there can be kind of quite extreme views in terms of those who have Afro hair and those who don't. So we just like to remind everybody it's important in terms of, as I say, you don't know a person's journey, why they may decide that they want to cover their hair. But at the end of the day, you still have to protect your scalp anyway.
Right, so guys, so what's interesting about this little acronym is that back in the day we focused on straightening, black dynamic. Many black people have straightening hair already. I'll explain that to you later on. So this would be bald, braid, locks, afros, weaves or wraps, curls, kinks, and straightening. What's nice about this is that we call this the 9 principles of Afro hair, which means Afro hair can morph into 9 different styles. I mean, it's amazing. So then we were back in the day wasting our time straightening our hair and damaging our scalp and damaging our health, our health. But all along we had this. So it took us almost 30, 40 years to arrive at this stage. And thanks to Rastafarianism, thanks to the natural movement, all this has come along. And that's because things take time, guys. Wonderful proverb. Be still and the world will present itself at your feet. And right now, Afro hair, there can't be enough Afro hair. Everywhere. Models, actors, actresses, even white people asking me to do their hair into Afro styles. I advertised last week for a model for a photo shoot tomorrow. And one of my white friends says to me, yes! I goes, no, darling, you're looking for Afro. No, sorry, darling. So there you are, all of a sudden, Afro hair is, so for you guys, wear your hair with pride. L'Oreal, Wella, all the TV commercials, all the campaigns. You go to Westfields, you go to Stratford, the big brands, there's always a black girl with an Afro hair. Why is that? Have you asked yourself why? There must be a reason, and you guys can obviously find the reason that yourself. There has to be a reason. I think it's a spiritual movement, personally. I think, as Marcus Garvey said, we have woken up. And the Americans use the term woke. It's amazing, isn't it? So it all ties in beautifully. So that's what so I'm a hairdresser that focuses today, having spent 30, 40 years, if you like, for want of a better term, damaging people's hair. But sometimes in life, you have to damage to get what you know what I'm saying?
To learn.
Seriously, isn't it? And we learned a lot because back then to straighten somebody's hair required an amazing amount of skill. You couldn't just get the relaxer and put it in somebody's hair and just relax it. You had to know what you're doing. Right? It took us 5 years to learn that. So, guys, I mean, this...
Okay. Background now. So I come from the sales and marketing side of the industry. So, any of you heard of Dyke and Dryden? Have any of you heard of Afro Hair and Beauty, the show?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah. So I coined those 3 words, Afro Hair and Beauty. And in fact, the film that's going to be running in the background a bit later on, that's the original Afro Hair and Beauty film from 1983. So it's on YouTube, so you can get it after this. And why it's important, and my career and Derek's career, we kind of run parallel. Because I worked for Dyke and Dryden, so at the time, Dyke and Dryden, that was the largest black company in Europe in the 1980s. So it started in 1965. 2 Jamaicans, Len Dyke, Dudley Dryden, Tony Wade, who came in later, and Tony Wade came from Montserrat. So the 2 Jamaicans, one Monstratian, I just happened to be half Mostrach and half Jamaican, and I was the sales and marketing manager. And touching on what Derek said, so when I went to Dyke and Dryden, I was already a salesman. I worked for an advertising company selling space in magazines and finding people that we could do work for. And one day I happened to go into Dyke and Dryden. So years ago there used to be a newspaper called West Indian World, West Indian Digest, those sort of magazines, run by a man called Arif Ali. Has anyone heard of that name, Arif Ali? Dryden. And then I got them as an account, and then one day Mr. Wade said to me, we're looking for somebody to handle the sales for the company, would you be interested? And I said, very interested, because at the time, it was just in the early 80s when the curly perm was just starting to grab hold. There were fashion shows everywhere. So to be responsible for that, it was great. So I spent a year, 18 months, running up and down the country, selling products all around the country, putting on fashion shows. And then so I won a trip to Atlanta in 1982. And at the time I didn't even have a passport. In fact, I said to Mr. Dark, I haven't got a passport, and he said, well, go and get one then. So young people take it for granted these days in terms of travel. So I was about 22, 23 before I even left this country. But I've been fortunate as a consultant, because I would like to talk about Dyke and Dryden, the importance of them as a business from within our own community. Because at the time, we were the largest provider of trade credit, of business credit, to all the companies around the country. And Dyke and Dryden, we did talks in schools, in children's homes, and Dyke and Dryden supported schools, hairdressing schools, and there were so many young people who got the opportunities to be models, to travel internationally, just from that one company. And they had about 50 or 60 employees at the time. Shops around tended to be in Haringey and Hackney was really their main domain. But why they'll always be remembered, because of Afro hair and beauty, because at the time it was the first show of its type in the West End, and that was at Grosvenor House, Park Lane, March 1983. Scale with international companies, and actually getting the publicity for being on TV and radio, very mainstream. So what Dyke and Dryden did at the time, they brought what was an industry which was a niche industry into mainstream recognition, and it was led by our community. And there was a lot of collaboration. It's only looking back now we realise how much collaboration there was, how much opportunity was given to young people to get the learning and skills that they need. So that's why, touching on what Derek's saying about our approach to education, especially you as young people, and we're very pleased to be delivering an event like this here, because this is an educational establishment, that the world has changed significantly, and there's a demand. So if you take people like us at our age, we always understood that you needed to be determined, you had to be disciplined, you had to demonstrate character, you certainly had to have courage, because in those days, the 1980s was a very tough time for young people. Young men, primarily at lunchtime, would be going out in their nice suits, just looking in the shop, getting something for lunch, and they could be just arrested, stuck in the police station for no reason at all. They didn't have to have any reason. So in those days they were called the sus laws, as they were called it. You can Google sus laws and you'll see. And so again, the leadership and mentorship that we had from the elders at the time, it's only looking back we now realise how important it was. And in fact, Mr. Dryden really made his name, particularly in the Stoke Newington area, because he would always be going down to the police station to get these young people released from the police station. But the other important thing is, up to today, there's a demand for young people now in terms of what we call transferable 21st century skills, and that's collaboration, creativity, communication, critical thinking, and we've added entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is so important. So entrepreneurship is not just about business only, but it's about making best use of the resources that you have. So your community, the heritage, the legacy, the friends, the family, working together. The term we use is minding our own business, which is really important. So going back to what Derek was saying, and he's put it up there as well, minding our own business, I'm glad he's put it up there. Again, that was always our mantra. So that's to do with self-esteem, cultural understanding, and the awareness, and the self-respect. So I think we're at a great time, as Derek said, and we're very clear in terms of how we deliver the learning and support. And we do see this as a long-term. We will be doing some long-term programs here in Croydon, based here actually, working with your leadership to actually inspire more people to actually understand that it's a great opportunity, but you do need the education to go with it and the skills. We've got lots of practitioners who are willing to share their experience, and so I think this is a great time. Now, the next phase that we wanted to talk about, we need a couple of models, don't we, Derek?
Yeah, we guys will have some volunteers.
Right. So if we could have a couple of volunteers, one there and somebody can sit here. Don't be shy, please.
Look, this is
your right at the back there. Yes.
Yeah. The question I need to ask is really, when you found out, for example, that a lot of these products you were using were causing cancer and stuff like that, and putting caustic soda in your head.
Yeah, sodium hydroxide,
Yeah.
caustic soda. Yeah.
When did you actually, or did you have an awareness program, or when?
Right.
Can
I explain?
answer it the best way I can.
All right. Oh, you want to add?
Right. So
Because you haven't done.
okay. So the key thing is not to have any fear, if you like. Right? It's not something that you get scared of. As Rudi said, chemicals are everywhere
They're
in our community.
Yeah. And even when people talk about natural products,
No such thing.
there's no such thing, because they all have to have something so they can last, don't they?
So-
Otherwise nothing could last, more than hours. You'd make it, and you wouldn't be able to. So that's the point, really.
Right. So interesting. So guys, so back to my little diagram. Right. This meant a lot to me back in the day, because this is quite symbolic. So here is our head. All right. This is our head. This is our texture. It's referred to as frizzy or kinky. All right. And we are endeavoring to get the hair straight. The chemical to do this is referred to as, well, I say caustic soda. It's a relaxer.
Sodium hydroxide.
Has a very high pH balance. But I'm saying caustic soda because that's what it really is, but it's sodium hydroxide, the technical term.
Yeah.
Right. What's interesting, every 3 months you need to apply the relaxer to what we call the regrowth to straighten the hair. But here's the interesting thing. The penny dropped when I realized, my God. So this product is white. And this hair, the kinky hair, is black. And at no time in my entire career, this could defeat this. After 3 months, 6 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks, this kinkiness pushes out.
Yeah.
It's like it's defiant. And this has a very high pH balance. It's very, very strong. It will, in fact, well, it's like bleaches it. It can cut into your skin and your hair.
You see what Derek's saying? So I call that the vibranium. think of Black Panther and vibranium. That's because it's forever, isn't it?
this meant a lot to me.
Forever.
It's meant a lot to me.
It's forever.
So here we are today, 30 years later. We're now wearing the natural hair and the white what a comedian once called creamy crack. Is referred to as creamy crack because of the dependency on this relaxer every 3 months to get your hair straight. And it was like a drug, wasn't it? Right? And some people made billions of pounds. I think the figure is 80 billion pounds a year using this chemical in our hair. And all of a sudden, we've had this wonderful epiphany, collective epiphany. We've taken our hair back. And this is
healthier. That's the right word than this caustic stuff.
Oh, the hot comb.
Yeah,
Pressing.
the hot comb.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, pressing would have been the forerunner to relaxing. So the pressing comb was invented by a black woman called Madam C.J. Walker, but the woman we should give credit to is a woman called Annie Malone. So that's 100 years ago. So the pressing comb, which your mother may have used, and it's become very fashionable.
And the paraffin lamp.
The paraffin lamp.
Who remembers the paraffin lamp?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
So,
yeah.
so the pressing comb.
Dax oil,
That's
one of those, all the ultra sheen products, pomade.
It's
and
smoking them now.
When you smell,
Was that healthier than this, or was that bad?
That's definitely something to be discussed. Again, as Derek said, it was,
so relative, isn't it?
yeah, and it's to do with the capability as well, because a lot of the time, in fact, that's one of the issues that we have now, is the challenge around the practical advice of hair care maintenance, because the education side has always been a challenge.
Critical.
Yeah.
It's all about education, guys. I mean, people, there's a mad rush for natural product all of a sudden. It sounds nice because, as you know, the Jamaican castor oil is doing it, isn't it? The Jamaican black castor oil is, and that's good because that's pure vitamins. And vitamins helps. It's a hair growth enhancer. So this rush to use Jamaican black castor oil is good because, of course, it actually aids the hair in terms of its growth. So when you hear things like natural and unnatural, guys, don't panic. The hair is tough. We are very tenacious as a people. Nothing can destroy us. It doesn't matter. The thing is, trends will come and trends will go. And for right now, the trend is the natural movement. And it's a good thing. And the reason why it's a good thing, because guess what's happening? I call it collapsing the trust to claim our trust. Does that make any sense to you guys? Why do I say collapsing the trust to claim our trust? Because we used to trust our parents to do our hair. And then somewhere along the line, we left our mothers and grandmothers and went to somebody else's shop.
We now have at least 2 generations that haven't done their children's hair.
And you know the
same
shops
way.
that you guys go into to get looking for results, looking for answers. You go into a shop and you're asking a bloke that doesn't have a clue.
Yeah. And then blaming him for not knowing anything about your hair.
Can I
So-
say,
but-
the
alright,
Dyke
yeah,
in
go on.
Croydon, is that company?
No, yeah, not anymore.
Can
In
I
fact,
ask- can I ask-
Mr. Dyke and Mr. Dryden both died a few years ago.
Okay.
Mr. Wade is still alive.
Was
in
it
his
sold
80s.
before they?
Amongst ourselves, because we can look back at the industry and see where black businesses were an integral part of how the whole industry worked, providing jobs, learning and skills, but there wasn't a sense of collaboration, association, and the point that we use about minding our own business and taking care of that business, and the consumers of the products and the people and those who provide the services, understanding it's important that they work with each other, because if you think of if the businesses are providing a poor service, consumers will go elsewhere, and if consumers don't have an ethical stance in terms of why they're supporting businesses that provide employment to their community and to the young people, the money doesn't stay within the community. It goes elsewhere.
And not just that,
But my
even
point
the
is
testing
that
of the black products as well. There was stuff they had written saying that even the testing and the kind of ingredients they were using.
free society and people make their
Choices.
choice.
Very good point, actually, because when you also, in supporting our businesses, you have to also support our idiosyncrasies as well. Case in point, I went just now to buy, I was really starving, and I can't eat any other food but my own food. Does that make sense, right? Right, so I had to have rice and peas, and I had to have fish and okras and stuff of that nature. But I went to the restaurant nonetheless, and I stood there for 1 hour. But because I've got the culture, I was making friends with the chef and laughing and joking. Now, my partner says to me, honey, I think I'm going to go to McDonald's. But I said, no, I need food, I need proper food. So when you talk about products and excellence and L'Oreal, you may look for the best hair product to apply to your hair, but you might be using Colgate to brush your teeth as opposed to sodium bicarbonate, which is actually a better choice. I mean, do you see the analogy I'm trying to make? You know, people, oh, I want the best products in my hair. But then when you go to the fridge, and food and hair grows at a cellular level. It doesn't grow externally. In spite of what I've said, the hair shaft is actually dead. Why is it dead? If you were to hold on to this and butt this hair, she wouldn't feel a thing.
Well,
but if,
I'm going to demonstrate.
but so guys, so don't make a big fuss about sometimes products. Yeah. It is good, however, to have an excellent product because the scalp will eventually, of course, it would be the end result, would damage your scalp, whatever. But I do believe a good product, an excellent product is crucial. But there's a lot of brouhaha about I do natural products.
Well, I think it's such a good point that you raise still, because if you think of all the young people that we have in our community and the challenge of accessing opportunities to get those skills and ability and experience, because again, going back to all those years ago, we've had lots of opportunities for people to be, learn about merchandising, sales promotion, marketing promotion, all those kinds of things out in the real world. Whereas it's a lot more challenging now. But the money was going within the industry because we had the businesses. But that was still linked to the consciousness of the consumer buying those products. Because at those days you had the big brands, Carefree Curl, Stay Soft Grow, Ultra Sheen. They were all big names at the time. So that's what kept the wealth and kept the industry running. Whereas now, it's much more global, of course, and you don't get as many opportunities for the young people. And that's what we've got to think about. How do we get more opportunities with this new birth of Afro hair? How do we translate that into opportunities for young people? That's the challenge. And in the sense, going back to what Derek touched on, yes, it is really driven by women in the end. So we used to say back in the old days that how can we get the mothers to understand that their purchasing can have a direct relationship with helping to get the jobs and skills into the young people, into the community. Right, guys. Yeah. Let me just add to what Rudi just said. So if you are concerned about the future, are you about your future? And little man over there, tell you what's interesting, that what we found recently, more black children need to focus on chemistry. Exactly. If we'd understood back in those days, we would encourage more young people in the community chemistry. And why do I say this? Who is the biggest chemist in London? Boots. And all of us at some point would go to Boots. And the people behind Boots would obviously be chemists. And who are the chemists? The chemists are the people who make products, who make drugs, who make medication, who make our shampoos and our conditioners. As a matter of fact... Formulators. They're all, if you look at their background, they're chemists. I found a few years ago there was a kind of drive to drive our children into what we refer to as something to do with media. That's it, media. Yeah. Media studies. Every child that I bumped into, including my own family, was media studies. And I look around me and I see buildings going up. And I'm thinking to myself, but you guys need to become a builder, like a bricklayer, or plumber. Architect and plumber, electrician. What's in media? And then I said to my daughter now, because she likes us, or the chemistry, says focus on chemistry, because some of the richest people in our community now
and back then were people who formulated products.
Formulators.
The 5 big millionaires in America, or in fact billionaires, were guys who focused on products. Johnson's with the Afro sheen, Proline. 5 big brands. They made billions. And today we got people like Procter & Gamble, and know who they are, big companies. And that's the key for the future, because that's what we were. At 24, I had my own shop, one of the biggest shops in London, 24 in Maida Vale. Cost me £150,000. How much is that today?
It's a lot now. Must be.
That was almost what?
I mean,
35 years ago?
35 years ago.
Big shop, 3 stores, 3 stories. And that's all because of a skill. And so sometimes people used to belittle hairdressers, but today is one of the biggest industry in the world.
Travel the world.
Wherever you go, there's barbers. In fact, there's more barbers than any given high street. And what's amazing is our barbers have actually created a sort of stimulus, because I've seen more Asian barbers than ever before. Never seen so many English guys in barbering. Because our boys was there fading away. And it looks good because they were going to them for the fade, now they're doing it themselves.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Well, it doesn't matter, because we're very creative.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
We'll find a market.
It doesn't matter.
We'll find a market.
And don't despair, guys. And the reason why I don't despair, you know why I don't despair? The biggest thing happened to me this week when I saw Tyler Perry.
Oh, yeah.
Built his own studio. And it's bigger than Warner Brothers. And how does it happen?
But getting back to the entrepreneurship, why is it important as well? And even those going into their 20s, there's no reason why you can't do each other's hair as well.
That's the tradition.
Do each other's hair and earn some money from doing it, develop the skills.
And listen, guys, my daughter, this is so funny, right? Because I'm an entrepreneur, as you said, my daughter does the labels.
Yeah.
Right? The factory makes our partner makes the product for us. He's a professor, he's a chemist, he's a formulator, and we decide to do our own labels just because Rudi sometimes does the literature. Because the wording has to be right. So I'd write up a few bits and pieces and he'll put it all together because he's marketing, I'm artistic. Okay? And so the labels come to me, and my daughter charges me, I'm telling you, you know what she said to me? She sent me an invoice. I got the invoice. She's only 15.
Oh.
She sent me an invoice for £86.
That's right.
So I'm able to sustain my family within my family, my own business.
And this is the point we're trying. We have to get our community to understand.
Not to mention, I've got to give them more £100.
the importance of the vibranium, as I said. Derek showed you here. That will grow forever. It's so valuable. And so and you can see very simply how it can sustain. It can sustain all the needs of the community.
Our mission,
education institutions, everything, businesses, it can sustain. Because it's done it before.
Definitely has done. So we use the word renewal.
Renewal, yeah.
Renewal means nothing.
What we're saying is not new.
Nothing new.
It's been done before.
Right?
It's been done before. Yeah.
With renewal, you may not know this, but over 100 years ago we had brilliant hairdressers, just as good as hairdressers today. And today we have other hairdressers doing great things, passing on the. So we call it passing on the baton. So the reason why we're speaking today, we're passing on some nuggets to you guys. And I'm sure in this group,
at least one of you one day will say, you know what, I was in Croydon in October 2019.
I was inspired.
2 old geezers came in here.
I was inspired, right? And so that's the key.
I was 8 years old at the time.
And an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And she said the fundamental word.
Exactly.
I am, she says, an entrepreneur. Right?
And
And the reason why,
she will
so
be.
2 people moved me this month. 2 people moved me. Tyler Perry, and the other guy was Terrence Howard.
Yes.
You heard what he said? You all heard what he said? What did he say? Tell the audience.
Well, it was rather high-level stuff.
Yeah.
He was being interviewed, and I think a lot of what he said went.
Right. So what she's actually saying, what I think she's saying. So society is a construct, isn't it? It's created. It's a construct. Does it make sense? Right. And in society, what he said is that you're told to go from A to B every day. A to B. then he realizes life isn't about A to B. In between, there are in-betweens, and he talks about waves and motions and
Right.
all sorts of things, which is actually called apparently the flower of life. Anyway, that's a bit sort of complicated stuff. But the point is, in life, what do you say in life? He's going to do his own thing.
Again, follow your own dreams,
He's
isn't it?
tired of going to work just
Exactly.
for a paycheck.
That's
He
right.
knows that he's more than the paycheck.
There's much, life is much more
So
than that.
he's more. You can't pay him for the skills and that he already embodies within
That's right.
himself.
Does that make any sense?
He's grander than
Right.
what you see.
Bigger.
He's bigger than
So you are bigger than what people think you are.
Yeah, and the good thing about that, it is every stage of your life. So whether you're 8 years old or 80 years.
Many, many people's hair, and many celebrities, all of whom, names that you may know over the years, in the mix. It's not just about hairdressing. So, if Rudi can explain, before I go into this, Rudi, can you explain what Madam
So
Annie Malone...
Annie Malone said,
So let me say, so Annie Malone was a famous
Yeah.
black entrepreneur, hairdresser, and what did she say, Rudi?
it's not just about hair. So she said that around about 19